of joking about a part of the on this friend. You say not and you have with the doc to each so I you think they'll need ported English. It's nice not in Rick. That's just one people or it. You know, roll. They've never so eight that we score example saying I've operator operator hand all look more call but yeah youth me with the of people today. There's city, it's just, but how, where do we is that because say on some how you as a club that plan see that's them and now both cream league I pivot for play their I G is ever playing more uh I mean very maybe the league create with the three looks out it. This is the help. Don't this journal read today of the one and show parts of never you know about this one uh this We right and get know or that
Said I was exam. I would get nine. I could 10 because others. So back I really care was but right yeah, in the road, but it is what take over the car and realize that that was not is. I was all back in the late 70s or even strength coaches. It was not other sports. It was pretty much frowned upon to do any considered go run or do something like that. But then I had a career path at 1983 as you're going to have to get a real do this. It was a professional tennis career that did not last very hard. That allowed me to start training than I was, which was one of those negative into the performance aspect. Andres and early that had that, and from that academy worked sports primarily with talent. And it's just some different levels. But before that, whatever was available is one of those that I would talk then the right way from the study, from the stand, because it's a lot back then as it there's at least that's the real challenge with it.
Yeah. So now you're
really, you can get on YouTube and one negative about this day adjustments when it's necessary. B plus C equals. I could teach somebody when C gets skipped, or you have people don't want to look. Obviously, compromise or compromise. So it's a line of work or career, because every age, same sport, all 10 on the same program within a team. But and you've got to respond to the training.
getting in and working with athletes. There are personal trainers, and they specialize in trying to just do weight loss. Zeroed in on do work with. You thought business years ago, thinking of decades of working.
It goes right. Spot exercise and around and all this, and you just sit. That happens too. That are out there overcome. you don't make performance strength coach. An 88-year-old, great year-old high school. The principles are going to be the same. Now, obviously, the specific differ in all three categories. Okay, what do I need? It's on target, or is that assessment? Or as Charles Staley way back, every single workout, there is no such thing as play. There are times that you kind of feel like you're a little, because maintenance to me, two things. Any athlete looks at it and goes, I'm just going to maintain, eliminate the guilt from not doing it. You take the maintenance mindset and with that workout over in it, productive mindset. That's the other aspect that's probably changed for me a lot. It was about working hard. As long as you're doing your work, as an example, and that perceived. So my perspective from, say, 20 years ago, in the sense of and again, I use Jaden as a bunch of work at Jaden or any one is he's going to develop an indifferent specific to getting him back. Standpoint, all we're doing is creating fatigue. Practice for his sport, so that could end exposed to an injury because he's just in training, no matter what it is. But you don't working hard, but it's not productive work. This is my opinion.
So when you're looking at a player with in the past, when you're having that conversation about what your assessments of shapes or that you are factors are you looking at creating the right programming, body as well as
things you have to take into account from day one are position of their sport. For instance, in football, a quarterback. So many that we don't need to get into them, but the demands of that sport. Then you have to look at their body type. I'm not a big fan of standardized assessment groups where you don't have the time to really lay eyes on an athlete on a continuous or an individual on a continuous basis. Time you need to make that one-time assessment and then you're hypermobile here. You don't need to do any kind of stretching or anything right now. We need to focus on stability. Those types of some of that quick information that's better than not doing it. I don't like relying on those for individuals because I could test the same individual 3 times within the first week. So for me, it's like it gives me kind of a false positive or a false negative where I'm really when I do that because their things are going to change. And so when I design a program, it's going to be based off of lower body hip dominant, lower body quad dominant, meaning a deadlift variation, a squat variation, negative chance of any type of negative happening. Upper body push, upper body pull, and upper body vertical push. Most reliable way to start a program. Now, from there, it's going to be very specific, as well as their age and their mindset. Again, we use an athlete that's 14 and can do some things that maybe an 18-year-old is really going to struggle with because of the psychological difference in their maturity. So it's one of those. And once again, you can't find that on a standard. Start with this program and then lay eyeballs on them, watch their body language, and then communicate consistent. Every time I do this, coach, my hip hurts. Well, you don't go, well, just tough it out, just go lighter, go light. There's always these incompetent coaches will give thinking, okay, we'll just than what I've given you. I've given you the standardized program, so I don't know where to at all. Where I'm coach, which I think any competent coach is, where you look at it and you go, okay, this is causing pain, or this is causing one of those things where you just go, lifter, you got to use the barbell. If you're not, you may not ever have to touch a barbell. If you're we may never touch a barbell. So those are things that I take into consideration. If you're someone that has an aptitude for that, you're not a competitive lifter, but we'll base the majority of your program around the barbell because that's something that you connect with. So that has a lot to do with the assessment process, Daniel, in that you've got to find specificity, but you've also got they're going to be not only consistent. I mean, they may show up every workout, but they're not going to really give just putting my time in. And that's why I can't stand the word grind. To that, and I'm not saying every time somebody says that word that something it's a and working hard. It's about being productive, and sometimes the tool that you're using is not the best tool. So instead of using free weights, and other times you need to be using free weights instead of resistance bands. That's causing that athlete to get better as opposed to just doing busy work.
Listening to you describe that there's a lot of artistry to tweaking and monitoring and observations that factor into there's a lot of things that go into that beyond, and then you can go and do this and then we'll tweak it in a few weeks or whatever. You've mentioned a few times it's in your evaluation. You've talked about their mentality. How important in terms of their training, as well as about how that gave you an edge when you were playing sports. And critical a component is psychology and the mental aspect, performance, and your work with those athletes.
It's like, and as well as the runner, as well as the governor. I mean, it's gonna provide not only. That's not true. I didn't have any psychology training when I played high school to doing it, or there was some level of psychology involved in that. So you have to have, it's not enough to, that's something that even at an early age, and you're always dealing with individuals, especially that, and they don't have an understanding. Then where the psychology comes in, Daniel, is clarity. That does not imply perfection. There's a difference in having clarity and then things being perfect. Like, for instance, one of the best at running the 2-minute drill, say a Tom Brady, it's not a perfect environment for him. Of chaos. Whereas we're watching it from the outside going, you know, he's on the 1 yard line. He's on his own 1 yard line. Well, it's the guys that have just where they're able to tolerate that environment. They're always at. You learn that not the football field, about in the training process of having clarity about why am I doing this? Why am I doing, you know, and I get that. However, it's the why. That's a little bit deep, but it goes right back to the psychology. If you have a really good athlete, and then also great from elite, you know, what separates the college and then never made it to the NBA, and he was phenomenal in college. It's not lack of talent. It's not. It's, if you really wanted to peel it back, you would go, it's the mental aspect of that. All kinds of names we've given it over the years, but it always comes back to clarity. It's like the guy that has such clarity that he will not give up, or the guy that's never lost a match before. To him mentally, possibly you could break him mentally. Or is it the guy that you go, this guy won't give up? I know it's kind of a gruesome example, but my point is that it's the one that has the clarity that's always going to be the best. Win every time, like some of the other guys, you go, well, and you point to him and you go, well, that psychology hadn't gotten him too far, because they look at him, he's not his best. So he's tapped into more of his potential, his or her maybe has more gifts from a physical standpoint. Then our job, we can't control that. We can't control the degree or the percent psychological part. Now, are there great athletes that have not tapped into that psychological clarity that they could have been, that we see, and then they sabotage that greatness? They end up falling off. You go, Tiger Woods was, you know, phenomenal. He was, I mean, he set the new standard in golf, the sport. And then not only because of the physical injuries, well, a lot of it was on a whole nother, but it's applicable to every. Again, that he did not need to be doing to be a great golfer. He was running and his body down. He was doing a lot of really unproductive weight training practices that he could have still been training in strength training, but in a more efficient. He chose to create his own identity at how hard he was working. Something missing in him that he was trying to get from that training. It tore his. He started making some very unwise personal decisions in his life that become very or infamous. A lot of that ties in, but then the other side of that is look at it now. Look at how he's responded to there. He's come back out and he won the Masters last year. So he's a great example. Seemingly had the psychological part down, but had not gotten that personal clarity. Bad decisions from his training perspective as well as in his personal life ultimately because of being injured. All of your greatness you lose, but instead of him crawling in a hole, look at what he did. He went back and he's responded in a way that's him as somebody even greater than when he was on the Masters that he won, in the response of the people that migrated to him and go, wow. Athletic standpoint.
Absolutely. And I love that example. Watched many times. We're out, at the Masters, kind of they've put some of them together and sink the final putt and the crowd's going. A golfer like him that's been able to command, to be able to come back again and do it. Areas I wanted to ask you about in soccer, because it's probably on bigger. If you show, you might see some kids that are, you got puberty, such long, can actually handle equation. It's just like, well, he's big, he's fast, he's strong, and he might be right years as other kids develop and pathways in terms of development. As someone who has worked with players that are in where you're growing, even though for the scout or the coach who may see a player and the individual athletes are all kind of growing at their own pace. They're 13, 14 years old. You might have an idea, but they're certainly not fully developed around that age. And then going into the important is it for young athletes? How important is it for them to not get caught up on the bigger, faster, stronger, especially as much as possible, and with people like you, be able developing themselves and practicing it's a life cycle. You're not going to all of a sudden, wake up tomorrow. And I've told players before, I've even talked Sporting Lisbon in Portugal, in his own home country of Portugal, long before his Manchester. Scrawny little kid, and he was working, couldn't know who this kid was going to become later on as a man, even just from a physical. When you walk up to a sporting event and you see a kid who's just, I was like, man, that kid's a stud. But by that time, they may get there eventually, and sometimes they may not. When they're developing and growing up, they focus on themselves and the things they can. Comparison trap.
Yeah, that's one of the most challenging sports when they're doing everything within their ability. And then even in the high school, the earlier parts of high school. And it goes right back to the word someone that has been that route, as well as to use the house building. An empty lot, does that look like something you could live in? No. Guess what? Every house started like that. Every house. Exciting is it to watch them put the foundation up? I mean, well, it's not. It's not until you get the flat screen TVs and you start putting out the foundation. None of that matters. So it's communicating, and then exactly what to explain, because explain can go over their head. You've got to find a way to communicate with them that this is what is in your command of what you control, and then get good at letting go. It's not gonna be a natural. Bigger than you, faster than you, jump higher than you. There's no doubt that's gonna, but use that. Just motivates you, because you can't use the other guy to make you work harder. When people say, "Oh, when I see that," is into exactly what you're referring to about just focusing on things you can control. Well, you don't want to tell a kid that much harder. We'll see that once again, that's putting the control in the other kid. Comparison trap, even if we are doing it with good intention. Her in the is going to have a stronger flaws and compromise. You done. Now, if they come back and say, "Well, I know that slower path," that's the thing. So yeah, the other guy may be over there working. Guy that's more naturally gifted, and always be able to say, "Well, they don't work." To address the same things that the guy that's slower to progress, the kid that's to them, that they're going to have an advantage, a more deliberate path, a more patient path into something that can work. As a parent and as a coach, continue to reinforce that. The one thing you want to, again, stay away from man, I mean, you need to always just be, small. Don't go there with that. Only work for so long, because eventually that kid's going to identify with that inferiority. And so it may work other mindset, because eventually it's better to early on just ingrain in them, this is what you 1% better today, you're on the right path. Want to get, because also they're going to get completed. There's a point where they're going to take the foot off the accelerator with a steady pressure. So you're going to not only catch, they won't have what you have, developed all those attributes and those skills. You didn't have to develop those like you did. Oh no, I'm not as good, I'm not as fast. They look older than me, their voice is a point to. And then you have a stronger, that in the comparison in that, don't be in the, but you need to let them know that by them one other kid, but the advantage in the way that they're going to be able to go into college, go into the choose to go, because the best guys are just naturally gifted, but usually those guys sustain that type of work ethic somewhere, thing that maybe some other kids didn't have to do. So that's the thing that you, but you're going to have an advantage.
Athletes, this concept of adversity, biggest, fastest, strongest when you were smaller. It might be family. I mean, there's all as a kid, and it drives you, whatever the case may be. But shaping and building resilience, able to good and long, and
the popular answer would be, or the would be, oh, adversity makes you better. How much adversity? Oh, it's good for a kid to be without. Trained plenty of kids that have lived in adversity, really bad situations in their adult, not benefit from the adversity that have thrived. I've know without any concern about knowing where the good athletes, good people. So the adversity thing, it always comes back to eliminate indifference. It's a good thing. When everything available for you creates indifference, it's a bad thing.
No one season it. We know how to bring a person on our communities that truly difference. Of a family, of a community, of a region. There was either clean water or there wasn't. We believe safe water to drink, and we will continue fighting until that happens.
To have part 2, talking through some things about training for you to think about, and even more. Thanks for watching the show. We'll see you tomorrow.